Hello and welcome to Great Deltan. This video will be depicting how I construct the raised town scene that you see in front of me. That whole piece of wood lifts out, so I'll be able to take it out, work on it, and then when it's finished I'll be able to take it back in and stick it down permanently. The current plan is what you see here. That's a cutout for the bridge, and there'll be a road just following this, coming around here. And now I'm going to have some terraced houses at the back there, some low relief ones. So that road will curve down there, and then there'll be a T-junction for a road to go up there. In this space here will be the Fala Aldi supermarket and the car park to go around it. Hopefully I'll be able to get a little shop next door, which I'll be attempting to scratch build. I'll either be a Halfords or a Wicks. Over here will be a low relief end to a Screwfix warehouse. And then I haven't quite decided what's going to go on the other side of the road yet, but I'm thinking maybe a Kosta drive-through perhaps, or something else sort of modern looking, maybe even a McDonald's. So I've got the Fala kit and I've got the terraced houses kit, so I'll go and make those and I'll get back to you when they're finished and in place. Okay, I've built the kits I had, which is the Metcalf terraced houses low relief. Quite a nice kit to do. And then the Fala N-gauge Aldi. So that's in place. So yeah, this is what I've got at the minute. I'll probably stick with this for the first bit, and then I'll find out what's going to go in that space. Obviously the warehouse, the Screwfix warehouse will go there, and then I'll plan what's going to go over here. So yeah, we've got the road coming over there, T-junction off by the houses, and then we've got the Aldi with the car park then. So what I'll do now is I'll draw everything on with a marker pen or a biro, and then I can start getting towards some road painting. I'll be using the road layout that's in front of you to do all my roads. These are the girders for the bridge. So obviously on the town scene you won't have those, but then we've got pavement and the cycle path there, which will be a nice green colour, and obviously the 2 lanes. So I've measured that width to suit that, and I'll obviously follow around, and that'll go at the T-junction as well. Right, so I've painted on all of the roads and where everything will go. I've lined up all the cars in that car park there. And I've started to create some of the buildings which I'll be scratch building. I won't be actually videoing the scratch building process because me personally I've never done it before, so I'm not sure how it's going to go. I'll just be using a variety of plastic cards and paints to create the buildings. And the ones I have decided upon, that there will be a a Kosta / Subway, which is modelled on something from my local retail park. This one over here will be a low relief Halfords as seen in this photo. And then over here will be Screwfix, again modelled from my local warehouse. So they're pretty much in place now, and I've got the sizes, so until I can get some plastic cards in, I'll be getting on with some road painting. I've painted all the car parks and the road. The next task will be to just paint on the cycle paths, and then after that I'll get on to road marking. For the road marking, I'll be using these kits from Nosh. They're just templates, and then I'll be painting on the roads with some acrylic in white, probably a couple of layers, and then if I need to neaten any, I'll just touch up with the enamel paints that I've used for the road. So I'll get on with the cycle paths next, and we'll get back to you. I've done a few of the road markings just to start off in the car parks. There's a bit of touching up to do on the cycle path, as some of the paint did go under the tape, but I can easily just fix that with the same colour as the car park, just to go over some of the splodges and leaks. In these gaps will be pathways, so I've been a bit rough at the edges because that'll just be covered anyway. So I'll get on with the rest of the road markings, and then I'll get back to you when I finish that, and we'll see how it looks. I've now done pretty much all of the road markings. All the car parks are full. I've done all the roads, and then I've also down here started to put some of the pavements down. I will be putting these pavement sheets down to make it look like the building's sunk into the ground rather than having no foundation and just sitting on top of the board. So I'll be doing that with the Audi there, and with the other buildings as well. The houses come with pavements, so I don't need to do those. The next step will be to do all the pavements. I've done one there just because it was nice and straight, but these curved ones will be a little bit more difficult to do. Down here I've started to just hand draw some slabs. This will be the back sort of staff emergency exit route to the screw fix. I've got disabled parking in the middle. I've done most of the car parking spaces and the road markings with just frog tape. I was going to use the notch templates, but I didn't get along with them for doing car parking spaces, so I have used them for, say, the disabled wheelchairs and the arrows, all the T-junctions, white lines for the cycle paths, and the road markings I've done just hand frog tape, including that triangle. So we'll get on with the pavements next, and then we'll get back to you. All the pavement is now stuck down. The curves weren't too difficult, to be honest. I just used a piece of paper to trace onto the shape and then cut out that shape, placed it on the pavement card sheet as a template, drew around it and cut it out, and they're fitted okay. There's a little bit of touching up in paint to do in some areas where I've gone a bit short and the pavement's not quite covered where I've needed it to. But overall it's gone quite well. For some reason one of the terraced houses pavement has gone a bit purple, like it's been degraded by the sun or something, so I'm not sure why that's happened. But other than that it's gone okay. I've put down this cobblestone sheet, so once I've done the Subway / Kosta, what I'll do is I'll draw around it and then cut out the shape of it in the stone so it sits nicely. So the next part will now be to fill in all these gaps. All this area, all the empty parts are going to be just overgrowth bushes and grass. So what I'll do is I'll paint the whole area with the Woodland Scenics earth paint, and then it'll get a layer of turf, and then it'll get some static grass and some bushes. So we'll get on with that next, and a little bit of the paint touching up. So now the Woodland Scenics earth terrain paint has been put on, followed by a layer of turf. The turf I use is a mixture of Woodland Scenic soil and earth, roughly a 50-50 ratio, and then the static grass has been applied in most areas. I use a blend of the flock from Woodland Scenics medium green and harvest gold, and then I also had a little bit of summer mix in there as well, but I've run out of that now. The areas where there's no soil I'll probably be putting bushes to make it look sort of overgrown, not very taken care of. For me, I use the Petco static grass applicator. It's about £50, it's not too bad for the money. You only do get one mesh size though, so if you do want to use larger or smaller lengths of grass, then you'll probably have to buy different meshes, but it just runs on a D battery and it works for me. You can tell it does the job quite well. You've got a nice realistic looking grass effect there. The next stage now will be to add all the fencing. I'm choosing to do the fencing before I do the bushes, and then I can stick all the bushes up to the fence because they tend to use the fence to grow against, so it'll be a lot easier doing the fences first. I'll have to spray paint a few different fences, all the different colours. I think the Screwfix are just a standard aluminium colour, but then Halford's fences tend to be black. I'm not sure about Aldi yet, I'll have to have a look. And then I'll be having waist height fences that will surround the fronts near the pavements, and then we'll have a bigger fence to separate the back of the car park from just some more wasteland. I've stuck down all of the fencing and all of the trees, bushes and foliage to go in the sort of overgrown areas. So that's just now drying with a coat of PVA and water just to seal it. So really the last part of the town scene is the detailing. Once the scratch builds have been finished, then I can get a rough estimate of what position they'll go in their foundations, and then I can plan the detailing around that. They're nearly finished, I just need to finish the Kosta and Subway. So once that's done, I'll get all the details down. The details I'll be putting in are just here. So we'll have some wooden fencing, that'll be for the bin area in the Kosta and the Subway. A load of hazard signs which I might put on some of the buildings and the fences. I think there's a couple of no trespassing signs which will go on the fencing towards the overgrown area, as that will really be just wasteland where you don't want anyone to be hiding anything. We'll have a load of lampposts around the roads, some benches to go in various spaces, and then the bus stop will be over here, so I'll have a bench in there. I've made this little canopy which you often see in a lot of Halfords car parks. It's where they actually fit sort of bulbs, windscreen wipers, things like that. So that'll look quite good and quite realistic to have that. And then these benches here will sit outside Kosta and Subway as an outdoor seating area. These little details here are the ones that actually came with the Falla Audi. And then a couple of things from scale model scenery is some grit and salt bins, and then some tyres which I can just pop outside Halfords. And then of course, what is a town without any people? So I've got these people which I used for the other section. These are just the N-gauge assorted people from Kites Lights. They're quite cheap and cheerful, they're not particularly detailed, but if you want a lot of people for a cheap price, then they're ideal. So I will just get on with finishing the scratch building, and then the last part will be just sticking these details in, and then we'll have a nice tour afterwards. Well, here they are. These are obviously my first ever attempt at scratch building, so I didn't video it as I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go, or even sure how I was going to build them. In the end, I went for a wooden shell on each of them, made of 9mm plywood, and then I basically coated that with plastic cards, some brick sheet and assorted details. So we'll start with the screw fix. The corrugated sheets were from Wheels Kits, I think, or they're a ratio, and then the roof was made from a corrugated sheet from Evergreen Plastics. The brick sheet was some scale model scenery, and then the signage I printed out myself and stuck to plastic card. Along with the trims of the corrugated sheeting, they are also just plastic card which I painted and stuck on. The signage there was actually the same signage which I'll be using to stick on some of the fences. It's just I think it was a little pack from eBay, cost about £2 and you get about 200 signs in it, so that's fairly well for that price. Moving on to Halfords, again it was the same with the corrugated sheeting, it's from ratio. That's why I've had to separate it into sort of small sections, because you don't get big sections. Ideally I would have got it all from Evergreen, but they had a bit of a shortage due to some import issues and the current circumstances in the world. Same with the signs again, I printed them out, stuck them to plastic card and then just stuck them on the building. And then we've got a couple of details there, some posters, a couple of security lights and burglar alarms, which I've just sort of made myself. And then on to Kosta and Subway. This is the most difficult one I've had to do. I again did a wooden shell, coated most of it with plastic card, and then I've got some sort of interiors there just made out of, just printed out and stuck on, and then most of it again is just printed and stuck on. The clear plastic card I got from Evergreen, and then I've painted that with some enamel paint, sort of detailed window frames there. So overall they don't look too bad for a first attempt. I'll be happy to use them on the layout, and then we'll see where they go in a sec. And here they are. This is more or less exactly where they'll go, and then I will probably only fix them slightly with a couple of drops of glue. I'll explain why later, but you can already see I think they doesn't look too bad at all. I think they fit quite well with that, and they'll make quite nicely for a modern looking town section. pretty much it. That's the town scene done. I've dropped it into where it's going to live. I've only just left it loose at the minute because I'm not sure whether I'm going to be adding lighting to it eventually, and that's why I've only lightly stuck down all the buildings as well. They should just be able to pull off with a bit of force and not too much damage. I think in the future it could look quite nice with some lampposts, maybe some building security lights, some indoor lighting for the houses and the stores. So that's why I've just left it loose at the minute. But yeah, that's pretty much done now. The only thing left to do is add some vehicles to it. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've quite enjoyed making it. I think it's been a good experience, especially with the first attempt at scratch building. And hopefully you can take a couple of things from it. What I'll do is I'll just leave you with a few photographs of the town scene, and then I will catch you in my next video. Thank you very much and goodbye.